So after nearly 3 weeks, I think it is, we're back. We've made it back home. Thankfully, after it wasn't the Taliban that was the issue. It was the fucking food. It was the worst. I never get sick, or rarely get sick. I don't think I've ever got food poisoning, but that was probably the worst I've ever felt when I've travelled. Yeah, it was nice. But anyway, we're home. We've made it. We're now going to go through the final thoughts of Afghanistan, give you my opinion on the people, the Taliban, the food, what else? A lot of other shit. So yeah, let's go through the list and yeah, let's do the final thoughts on Afghanistan. Let's address the elephant in the room: the Taliban. What were the Taliban really like? I didn't have a problem going to Afghanistan. Nobody really had an issue with me going. It was the Taliban that was the main cause of concern for a lot of people, because they're obviously seen as a terrorist organisation. They are not. They're not perfect. They've obviously got a lot of things wrong. They have a long way to go. But they are by far the monsters that they are portrayed to be. We get the interpretation of the idea that if you go to Afghanistan and you come across a member of the Taliban, he'll cut your head off, which is just not the case. Afghans in general are incredibly hospitable. They're just so friendly and so kind, and the Taliban are the same sort of people, exactly the same. And although they're doing a job, they're there to look after my safety, look after the local safety as well. At the end of nearly every checkpoint, they would, through my interpreter, apologise. Which the first time a member of the Taliban apologised to me, it was bizarre. I found the Taliban at times incredibly friendly, because when you're sitting down, even when you're having chai, it's different when you're in the checkpoints and they're doing a job. When they bring you in for chai, you see a different side of them. They sit down, they laugh, you can hear them talking to your interpreter. Your interpreter will tell them stories that they're telling you, blah blah blah. I can ask questions back and forth, and they're very very open, and they ask you, do you feel safe? What do you think of Afghanistan? They're always keen to improve the image. But yes, I honestly had very few problems. I maybe had one issue, which was coming up to Mazar-e Sharif after we drove through the Hindi Kush up through the Salang Pass. So yes, the Taliban are, what could you say? It just feels a bit strange to say like friendly, because I know what they can do, and I know obviously the image we've been portrayed. But I would go as far as saying, if you go to Afghanistan and you play by the rules, which plain and simple, you just behave yourself, you'll not have a bad experience. In fact, you'll probably have many good experiences with the Taliban. We played fucking volleyball with the Taliban, and I drank probably 2 or 3 litres of chai with the Taliban over the course of the 2.5 weeks. It was yeah, they just they want to get to know you. They want to ask you questions too. Where are you from? What do you think? What are you doing here? And it's all, yeah, it was all pretty surprising, actually, to be honest. Suppose the question everyone wants to know is Afghanistan safe? I would say yes. Obviously there are elements of risk. Make sure you have a decent guide. Make sure you have a decent driver. My guide earned his. It's not cheap to travel to Afghanistan for obvious reasons. My guide was absolutely incredible. Anytime there's an issue with not an issue with the Taliban, anytime there are questions, or we're trying to get in somewhere, trying to do this, he's excellent at talking to them without being a pushover and without being aggressive. He just has it down to an absolute T. I'm not sure I had ever felt in danger. There's a couple of times where the Taliban would have come up to me if we were in towns or cities and there was a crowd, and just says, look, you're going to have to move on, because that's the threat. Whenever there's large groups, large gatherings, that's whenever there's the highest risk, obviously with ISIS and suicide bombers. It doesn't happen every day, but it still does happen. And yeah, honestly, there's probably very little. You'd be surprised how little there is to say about this topic, because I didn't experience any issues. And traffic and the driving is horrendous. So that's probably your biggest risk, is actually being in a car, not being in a car accident, and not being shot or blown up by ISIS. But yeah, is Afghanistan safe? I would have to say yes. I would have to say safer than most West. I wouldn't say a country, but likes of Kabul, obviously when you go out into the mountains, that's where the tribes are. That's the likes of ISIS and all the rest of that camp out. But certainly in the cities, over the main roads, in the main towns, absolutely no problem. Apart from a dose of fish, it's probably our biggest issue over the whole 2.5 weeks. Food and drink. Actually, right here, I joke about the fish. My fault, by the way, because you could not have seen. You'll see obviously the footage, but for the amount of flies on the floor, they were cutting it on this tree trunk, which obviously you can't clean, because obviously the germs and stuff will just seep into the tree trunk. You just can't clean it. So obviously it had yesterday's and last week's shit on it, and then I obviously dropped it on the floor. So my fault for taking the fish. I think it was the fish. It was the only thing I ate that day, apart from a sandwich in the airplane. In Kabul, we went to a couple of restaurants, really good. We went to a restaurant in Herat, which would easily be my favourite restaurant. I can't remember the name of it. Loads of different variety of rice, variety of meat, vegetables. You got soup, and you've got obviously bread. I don't want to see another fucking thing of bread for a long, long time. But yeah, food and drink pretty decent. Landscape is incredible in Afghanistan. That was something that blew my mind. Driving from, whether it was from Kabul to Jalalabad, Kabul to Bamiyan. Bamiyan in its own right was absolutely fantastic. Probably the best landscape. From Bamiyan up through the Salang Pass, through the Hindu Kush, which is part of the Himalayas, to Mazar-e Sharif in the north. Again, unbelievable. The long, long flat drives around the ring road from Kabul through Ghazni into Kandahar. Again, different landscape, but fucking epic. Unbelievable. The people, how they can be this open and this friendly. Afghanistan has gone through probably more in the past 40 years than it has ever in its history. Afghanistan's probably gone through more in its past 40 years than a lot of countries have in their history. And yet these people are so open, so kind. Even the Taliban, I have to actually commend the Taliban, because in Ireland, if we were invaded by, say, the Afghan army came in, right, I would probably be looking at Afghans after that. I'm not so sure about you, your government done this, your government done that. There was no ill will. There was no, although I'm Irish and it's a bit of a politically non-existent country, which is good when it comes to world politics, geopolitics. That's why I've choose to fly with an Irish passport. But there was no ill will. There was no, what are you doing here? You're part of NATO. You're blah blah blah. It was just, you've always been friends. Honestly, it blows my mind, and you'll only know by experiencing it. I would have to say that people are probably top 3 most friendliest people in the world that I've met, in a par with probably better than the Filipinos, who were just always just happy and joyous. Would I return? Absolutely, I have to return, considering I missed the 2 best days that was supposed to be. Going through the Korangal Valley, also known as Valley of Death, which is where a lot of the conflict was. There would have been many outposts there, many American outposts, where people would have been deployed for several months in the middle of nowhere. Incredible landscape, but good to see how exposed and vulnerable they were. You can go there, get a good idea of how these soldiers and these, I have to say, how these heroes, how would that affect you? You're there surrounded by a bunch of your buddies, and you're surrounded by a vast number of mountains. You have no idea where the Taliban are, no idea where ISIS is, your enemy, whoever it is. You don't even know who your enemy is. So yes, that's why I want to return. What if you want to visit? You need to get a visa. It's about $300 from Dubai. It can be done in 1 day. So you go there, stay in Dubai for 1 day, sorted, or I can give you a contact and he can do it. He can charge $50. Make sure you have a decent guide. I'll give you my guide's details here. I know people who have gone before on their own. They've done not public transport, but like taxis, shared taxis, and they've really struggled and they've regretted going on their own, and they've then went to find a guide. Pros, people, top of the list. I don't even need to say anything more, but you've got the landscape. 3G is actually very good. The signal is actually pretty good. Wi-Fi's not, but what do you need Wi-Fi for if you've got 3G? The history, the recent history as well, and yeah, just go, and don't need to go for 2.5 weeks, but honestly you will be quite warmed by the experience. Cons, number of checkpoints isn't that great. The fucking fish is terrible. Never eat fish in a landlocked country. Alright, that's the best advice I can ever give you if you're gonna eat fish around the world. Must not miss the people. Rate the country out of 10, I would have to say, for everything. Obviously it's got, it's a bit off the beaten path, so I would have to say probably 8.5. And then rate the country out of, I've been to about 160 odd countries, I would have to say top 10, because I really took an interest in the American War, really enjoyed it, really enjoyed learning about it, and then I enjoyed being there and just seeing what it's like. I really got that wow factor as well with the Taliban, playing volleyball with the Taliban. That's a 10 out of 10 experience right there. A couple of quick facts. This one will surprise you. Afghanistan is the world's largest producer of opium. So opium's made, it's like poppy seeds, and it makes heroin and morphine. which is 120,000 Afghan farmers are employed in the process to make opium. It makes obviously the Taliban a lot of money, although I think they're restricting opium production. Afghanistan has 26 different flags. Obviously, it's a huge history, going back thousands of years. But now it's obviously the white flag with the sort of black scripture on it. Afghanistan has the highest number of refugees in the world, so these are the people who leave Afghanistan because of war, famine, whatever other reasons. So that gives you an idea the situation that Afghanistan has been in over the last sort of probably since records began, so going back probably 100 years. Yes, that's it. That is the final thoughts on Afghanistan. Amazing country, amazing people, and yeah, fucking loved it. So if you're ever thinking about it, hopefully this series and this video has helped you make the decision and take the plunge. But that's it for now, and I will see you in the next series.